What's up, friends, and welcome back to the channel. There's a company doing something in the brain space right now that's just so unique and so inspiring that I had no choice but to talk about it because, well, I've just never seen anything like it. The place I'm talking about is the Bay Area Brain Spa, and this novel thing they're doing there, well, it's called community neurofeedback, where multiple people go through a brain training experience together for a fraction of the cost to do it on your own. I know, I'm in the future too. So in this video, we're going deep, guys. I'll cover how it all works from this community aspect to the neurofeedback itself. And from there, well, hold on to your seats because I'm taking you to a very noisy, often chaotic place with a lot of electrical wiring that most people probably wouldn't dream or want to enter. That is my brain. So by way of brain scans, I'll share with you what the inside of my cranium actually looks like and then what happened to it after doing 30 days of neurofeedback. And without giving away any spoilers, guys, all I can say is I'm pretty sure Andrew Huberman would be impressed by these results. So that being said, let's kick things off with a quick introduction to the brains behind community neurofeedback. You see what I did there? And the founders of the Brain Spa, Angela and Carly. For them, the Brain Spa, it's their calling, a true labor of love. They built this place with integrity and intention in hopes of helping others by sharing the tools that worked for them. Because at the end of the day, they've both gone through their own set of health challenges. Carly with her own family, and then Angela with just a string of symptoms that flared up for her after chemo.
After I was done with chemo, the doctor's like, okay, you're fine, you know? And it's like, no, I'm not fine. I have anxiety, I have depression. How do I get back to my life? I can't sleep. I'm on these drugs that are shutting down my hormones. And actually my aunt had been involved with neurofeedback. So she said, you're not getting better, you should try neurofeedback. So that's how I discovered it after my cancer treatments, and it literally just sliced through everything I was dealing with.
I'm the mother of a child with ADHD, and all of a sudden it's my job to figure this out, and all funnels quickly point you to medication. Because of my background and history with my mom and my own failures with pharmaceuticals, I was like, no, I'm not medicating my child, and looking for other options. And it was through a professional who suggested neurofeedback. I was like, yes, how could I not have gone there first? I know this. I've written studies on it. Like, I know neurofeedback works for ADHD.
And so even though they came to neurofeedback for different reasons, they found their way, well, on this same path to share it together. But it doesn't look or feel like your classic brain facility. The space is dimly lit. The furniture is actually cute and comfortable. And so it's designed more like a spa than a lab. And its doors open to everyone, regardless of their finances. In fact, they offer scholarships and reduced rates for people who simply can't afford it because it's part of their larger mission to make neurofeedback more accessible. Now, I was lucky enough to be able to sit in on one of these sessions and actually see for myself this collective brain training in action. And it's amazing. Each person gets their own dedicated space. It's complete with a reclining chair and this cool mounted screen where you can actually watch your brain data in real time. And once that trainer gets the wires in place and then turns the headphones on, that's pretty much it because, well, the brain kind of takes over from there. And so in terms of what's actually happening to the brain during these 30-minute sessions, it's a lot. And pardon me for simplifying things for the sake of timing, But essentially what's going on in this kind of feedback, called dynamical neurofeedback, is the brain is working to self-correct itself.
Neurooptimal is actually training the brain without telling it what to do. Gotcha. It's telling it what it is doing, and the brain self-corrects. The brain is this amazing self-correcting organ.
So this EEG device and software by the company Neurooptimal is designed to both read and process your brainwaves at like incredibly high speeds. We're talking 250 times per second. So that's kind of the neuro component, so to speak. And then the feedback component is auditory, meaning it's coming from the music. Because every few seconds or so, you'll hear a little skip or break in the soundtrack. And it's designed to essentially interrupt the flow of activity in the brain. You can think of it the way the Muse uses thunder and bird sounds, in that these split-second breaks are representing a type of shift in your brain state. And so every time these breaks happen, well, the brain picks them up as subtle cues to pay attention and then readjust. And so what's ultimately happening here as a result of this type of training is none other than neuroplasticity, which, contrary to popular belief, is not plastic surgery for the brain, but rather just a fancy way of saying the brain, it can rewire and form new connections all on its own. Because your brain, after all, is malleable, much like this ball of Play-Doh, which, yes, I did buy just for the sake of this analogy. And so the more you encourage it to reshape itself and create new pathways using tools like neurofeedback, the better your brain gets at, well, just about everything. But perhaps the most talked about benefits are with things like focus, decision-making, and stress management.
I think maybe the third or fourth time I came in, I had the neuro and I left so excited. I was calling all of my friends because I felt like I had just had a release because I've been in therapy before. And it's just like, I just felt like I got something in my core.
I'm at that age where memory and cognitive health is really important, and I'm starting to notice, you know, the little gaps when I'm full on doing my work. And with neuro, I can be like, oh, I remember that, and I wouldn't have before. Or I made that connection, or I remembered that name, or I remembered that piece of data or information that I needed to because my brain is more relaxed.
And so after hearing these kind of stories and taking my own attention issues into account, well, I just had to give neurofeedback a fair shot. So I took home one of their rental kits, which you guys can also check out if you're interested in trying neurofeedback at home, since they do offer shipping. I'll link that for you guys in the show notes below. And I'll get to all of that in just a sec. But first, let's talk data, because what really are results without a baseline? So the team hooked me up with this Waabi brain scan device to get a little peek under the hood at some of my key brain stats, including things like my brain reaction time, voltage, and this is an interesting one, the theta to beta ratio, which tends to be higher in people with attention issues like myself. Now, for the sake of time, we won't go over all the details of this Waabi system right now. I'm gonna save that for a follow-up video because there's a lot. However, I will say that the overall experience, since I've done it twice now, was a lot faster, it was a lot less mentally draining, and, well, a lot less sticky than some of the other scans I've tried in the past. It's almost as if it were designed for someone with a very short attention span and a thick head of hair. Just kidding. But like, maybe? Speaking of thick hair, let's move on to my own neurofeedback experience. A weird segue, but it'll probably make sense later. So inside this at-home kit, you'll find it's the same equipment they use at the brain spa, including your tablet, the EEG machine, and a big old tub of paste for the sensors. go sparingly, guys. Now, the setup itself is quick and easy. Just watch one tutorial and you'll be set. Though I do recommend using a mirror for the first couple of sessions, especially if you have thick hair. See, segue makes sense. Just to make sure you've got those sensors intact and in the right place. And so then once you plug in the device to the tablet, you log onto the portal, you then just press play, and that's it. The neurofeedback session starts the minute you hear the music and runs for about 30 minutes, at which time you can move around, answer emails, meditate, whatever. I mean, I wouldn't go and try sprinting with this thing on. The cord is like only 3 feet long. But the point here is you don't have to just sit completely still in silence in lotus position with an eye mask and sage burning in the background. I mean, you can, and that sounds cool, but it doesn't have to be so rigid. In fact, some of my best sessions came when I paired the neurofeedback to more creative tasks like writing and even video editing, because I ended up getting more done in less time without the feeling of being overstressed or overstimulated, which is not my default, by the way. Now, keep in mind, these changes to focus and attention, they're subtle, and they certainly don't just happen overnight. As with all forms of training, be it physical exercise or even brain training like this, if you actually want to see results, you're gonna have to put in the work, and you're gonna have to recognize it's gonna take time. Now, that's not to say doing a one-off session won't leave you feeling more relaxed or clear-headed for the day, but if you really want to move the needle on all those neural networks, it's gonna take probably close to a dozen sessions or more for those effects to translate on paper. At least that was the case for me and for a lot of people I've talked to. But after doing 30 sessions in a month, sometimes twice a day, because I'm an overachiever, what I got in terms of results, it was almost unbelievable.
The theta-beta ratio can be an indicator of having ADHD traits, and you were out of the target, which indicates you could maybe have some focus and attention issues. Now you are perfectly. So I don't know, maybe you're feeling like you have better attention. So, I mean, this thinks you do.
Now, despite these rather incredible results, I still think that neurofeedback has so much potential value simply because of the way it makes you feel, either with or without the brain scans. But I'll say one more thing about this, and pardon me for getting maybe a little too personal here, but the truth is, things never really came easy to me as a kid. I was diagnosed with ADHD at age 4. I was put on medication. I was held back a year in school, though at the time they called it pre-first, probably to make my parents feel better. But I lived with so much shame for being told I was too loud and out of control. And I lived with so much fear of being found out that, well, my brain was just not like the other kids. And so I went about most of my life keeping this a secret, finding ways to overcompensate by staying up late, working longer, pushing harder. And it worked for a while until it didn't. I could start 1.5 million projects, but never seemed to finish a single one. And so up until very, very recently, I just assumed that this was how it had to be. Now, that's not to say there haven't been some really great interventions along the way. I mean, the world of biohacking has some really fantastic tools to help people cope with just this. But then to come across something like neurofeedback and to actually see quantitative results like these in such a short amount of time, to see my brain shift away from this ADHD state, or whatever you want to call it, well, never in my wildest childhood dreams did I think that was freaking possible. And so, to the 4-year-old version of me who thought her brain was unfixable, that her attention issues could never be managed, that she would have to just live out her whole life trying to cover up this not so secret, I'm here to tell you that you don't. That there is actually hope, and that given the right conditions and tools and mindset, the brain will always look for new ways to self-improve. Oh, and P.S., apparently everyone has ADD now, so you're going to be totally fine. Now, I know that was a lot, and if your brain is anything like mine, you might be thinking, well, that sounds great, but how long does it last? And I'd like to say forever, but honestly, I have no clue. Some studies say 6 months. I've read others that say indefinitely. So it's hard to say for certain, given all the factors involved. But what I can tell you is that I do plan to retest every couple of months. And so I can share those scans with all of you if that's of interest. I have no idea. Just keep in mind that I am not a neuroscientist. I like neuroscientists, but I'm just a science nerd. So if you want a real scientist's perspective on all things neurofeedback, you can check out my friend Cody Rawls' amazing YouTube channel, because, well, he's a legit MD. And he's also just an amazing human all around. So I will link that up in the show notes for you guys to go check out. So getting that shameless plug out of the way, let's try and somehow tie everything together with a nice little bow by coming back to the premise of this video and the idea of doing neurofeedback together as a group. I mean, yes, it lowers the cost, and yes, that can mean more people can access it. But perhaps an even bigger factor to consider, and one that I think has the potential to shake up the whole industry, is this idea that sometimes people can get more from a shared experience with others than they would just doing it on their own. I mean, it's why we go to shows and concerts and weddings and funerals and fitness classes and movies and heck, even some talk therapy in groups. It's all about the human connection. It's the social bond, the energy exchange, the shared emotions, and this unique feeling we all get from being part of something bigger than ourselves. And so for those reasons and more, I just firmly believe in this mission of community neurofeedback. And I really hope it's just the beginning of this type of format in the space. So if you live anywhere in driving distance to the Bay Area, I highly encourage you guys to visit the Brain Spa and check out one of these sessions for yourself. But if not, and say you don't even have access to this type of tech where you are, they do offer rental kits. So you can do what I did and try neurofeedback at home. And before I let you guys go, I would be remiss to not mention one final way that you can get involved with the Brain Spa, and that is by way of donation. So as I mentioned at the beginning, they do offer scholarships to subsidize the cost of neurofeedback for students and teachers and healthcare workers and people in need, so that they can actually access these kind of services at little to no cost. So if you have the means and you, like myself, are inspired by what they're doing and their mission, then please consider making a small donation or whatever you can do to their nonprofit, the BrainSpa Community Fund. And I will be sure to include a link to that and everything we discussed today in the show notes below. So thank you for watching. I'm gonna keep this goodbye short and sweet today because I've taken up a lot of your time and, well, attention issues. But thank you so much to the BrainSpa for having me come in, and thank you to all of you for sticking around to the end. If you liked this kind of content, I hope you did, and you want to see more, make sure you subscribe to the newsletter. But if not, don't worry, I still love you. And I cannot wait to catch you on the next one.